quite a number of you. So that's good. So the format of this is I'll talk on the board, I'll write on the board, I'll explain an outline of how your undergrad should look like if you really want to pursue something in math research. And then I'll show you some nice resources that I use all the time to figure out what research opportunities there are, what research opportunities there are for undergrads, for high schoolers, and for graduate students. And I'll explain the different types of math research as well. So if you guys are just joining, just grab a chair, move all the way to the left. Okay, so there's two different fields of mathematical research. There is this applied math, and then there's this pure math. Who have heard of these two terms before? Okay, everybody, great. So I'll just very briefly write what they mean. So applied math is pretty much what it sounds like. It's mathematics which has an immediate connection to the physical world. So there's some problem, some people want to solve it, and we can use math immediately. Pure math is sort of the opposite. In pure math, you investigate math questions just because they're interesting, just because they're questions. And it's pretty fun. So, very clear. And pure math, like I said, examining questions, well, so what are some nice examples of applied math? Well, there's very many. So so my research is in this field called dynamical systems. This is considered applied mathematics usually. So what this just means is that there are usually modeling problems that we want to investigate, and a very, very easy modeling problem is something that I wrote a paper about. So off the coast of California, this is the example. Off the coast of California, there's a set of islands called the Channel Islands. On this island lives a species of fox that lives only on this island.
Really?
Really.
Okay.
So because of construction and all the stuff along the coast of California, there's a species of eagle called the golden eagle that used to migrate along the coast but has now started to migrate onto the island, nest there, and subsequently eat all the cute baby foxes. And clearly this is a problem, right? We want to save the foxes. So the question is, how do you save the foxes? Turns out this is a mathematical question. So, I mean, clearly you want to take away the eagles. How do you do this? Well, you remove the golden eagle nest. But the issue is that some biologists, scientists, with their data gathering found out, is that if you remove the nest too quickly, the population of foxes spike. And you can probably guess what happens if the population spikes. They eat all the food on the island, then they all starve to death. And this is, not wanted, right? We want to save the foxes. So you can use math to model the population of the foxes. You take into account, of course, the current fox population, food, diseases, any other parameters that you'd like to add. There were some snakes on the island that we needed to account for. And you analyze this system using some what we call bifurcation methods. Ended up writing a paper about this, and this is a very classical example of what an applied problem could be. A different applied problem is okay, so for spacecrafts, there's a lot of heat going around. So if you think of a big metal rod, there's probably a lot of metal in a spacecraft. If one side is heated, how can you properly model the heat flow to the other side of the rod? You can use this using what we call partial differential equations. And this is more or less a graduate level topic, but nonetheless something applied. Now, pure math is something like combinatorics, number theory. Number theory is pretty much like at the heart of pure math. MTIP would know a lot about this. I'm not a number theorist.
Why are you TAing number theory?
Because it's NT1. And it's still pretty fun. So an example of some combo problem would be like some graph coloring problems. Sometimes there's some edge colorings and some vertice colorings, and interesting questions will arise from that. And someone who knows much more about pure math than me is Marius. So Marius, please come up and explain.
Right, so I don't know how much I know about pure math, but I wanted to say something about research. When do we do research? If you find yourself thinking about a problem over time, if you find yourself thinking about something over time, then you are doing research. So I know that somehow the title of being a researcher is associated to those people that are in universities and have high degrees and whatnot. Everybody can do research. If you find yourself having a flood in your house and you are trying to repair the pipes so water doesn't go out, what you are going to do? You are going to try to explore to understand how the water goes out, how you can fix them, how you can group them. That's research. Okay? Now, about research in pure maths and combinatorics, I'm doing research in combinatorics at the University of Cambridge. How does research in combinatorics, how is it different from any other field? Well, sort of in combinatorics, every problem has its own stories. You don't find two stories that are the same. In other fields, usually what happens is that there is this one extremely long story that keeps developing and developing and developing, and as time goes on, it has more and more ramifications and so on. Whereas in combinatorics, each problem comes with its own stories. I have a bunch of problems I thought about during my period as a PhD student, and no two are about the same thing. Now, let me give you a concrete example of a research problem that I've been thinking so that you have a sort of an intuition what I'm talking about. So here's a problem, here's a brain design. I mean, it would be weird to talk about math for 1 hour and not have a problem. So here's a problem. You have an 8x8 chessboard, which you transform into a maze by putting walls between some of the edges between the squares and leaving others empty. So actually, let me draw a smaller one. So maybe here's a wall, here's a wall, here's a wall, here's a wall. Something like this. Now, you have a robot here. We'll call it blinded. It feels nothing, it sees nothing, it thinks nothing, it's stupid, right? So this robot, blinded, the only thing it can do is to follow a sequence of instructions that you write to him. For example, go north, then go north again, go south, go east, go south again, go north. Now, here's how it evolves in time. If the next instruction tells it to go north, then if there is no wall blocking it to go north, it goes north 1 unit. If there is a wall blocking it from going north, then it does nothing. And it wouldn't know whether it went up or down. Now, first question that arises, natural question is, does there exist an algorithm, a finite algorithm, such that no matter how the maze looks like, no matter where the robot starts, then it can visit every square, every accessible square, because obviously if you have something like this, you would never be able to visit that. So think about that. Now, I tried to answer, partially answer, and I have a paper on this. what happens if the void is infinite? Can you write an algorithm so that the robot visits everything? That's the type of questions that arise in pure maths, in combinatorial. And that was one that I thought about. Now, let me tell you some other things about a career in pure maths, and wait, then I give back the microphone. So I think the career as a researcher in mathematics, especially, is unique. The thing is, all you really need is to have a pen and paper. Nobody gives a crap where you are, what you're doing, as long as you are publishing papers, as long as you can come up with interesting results. That's all it matters. And you don't need to be based in one place. You can visit the world, you can go into the forest, you can do whatever you want, I don't care, as long as you come up with interesting ideas. I like that sort of freedom because I hate being put in a cage. I hate going into one place, having my hands tied and doing the same job, repetitive jobs from 9 to 5. I would die doing that. So for me, this was the only option. Now maybe you are different. I mean, I'm sure some of you are. But if you also hate doing something repetitive, if you want to have the freedom to think about whatever you want, to think about whatever you are curious, if you want to have the freedom to visit the world, if tomorrow you want to go to Switzerland, fine, go to Switzerland. If you want to have that type of career, then I think, yeah, the career as a researcher is for you. Now, if you want to make lots of money, something, right? Then maybe the career as a researcher is not for you. No. Yeah.
That was wonderful. Thank you again. So, great. Now what I want to tell you is when you enter your undergrad, if you want to think about pursuing research, this is what your timeline should look like. So let me erase this. So your undergrad is typically 4 years, some university. I'll write it like this. So your first year, you should just experience life, basically. Do not worry about getting into research positions immediately. This is no good. Work on learning the fundamentals. People who try and rush into these research positions, it never end up nicely because they always skip the fundamentals. So it's here, it's learn. This is it. Socialize. And I'm not kidding when I say socialize. Doing research is a social thing. I can't imagine doing research alone. That would be so boring and so difficult. The collaboration is how things are made. Okay, second. It's essentially the same thing, but now you're more networking with your professors. Here you learn about opportunities at your own university. And this is when you start realizing what you might be more interested in. Oh, do I like doing number theory? Do I like doing combinatorics? Or do I more like differential equations and stuff like this? Your third year is when you do something called an REU. Now, REU happens during the summer, and this stands for Research Experience for Undergraduates. Okay, this is specifically designed, usually, to help you figure out if you want to do a graduate degree or not. Because if you want to do research at all, you have to do a graduate degree. Here, RUs are typically 3 to 5 weeks long. They're always paid. They're always so much fun. Mine was at CSU Channel Islands, and this is how I got to that story I told at the very beginning. This is you must do this if you have any inkling about wanting to do research or not. It'll help you a ton. So what actually happens at an RU? Well, you're usually grouped into 3 or 5 other students who has a mentor from some other university. That professor poses a question to your group and he helps you solve this question. Sometimes you're able to publish something based off that question. Our group was able to do it, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is here is your first type of researching experience. And it can be pretty stressful, but I think it's a very good experience nonetheless. After your RU, you typically go to a bunch of conferences that they pay you to go to. In Texas, it was SOCNAS, and nationwide, it was something called the JMM, Joint Math Meetings Conference. The Joint Math Meetings Conference is the largest math conference in the nation. Tons of fun. Though I recommend going, it's probably not useful until your second year. And then during your senior year, this is pretty much where you make your decision. Do I apply to PhD programs or do I not apply? This is where you make your decision. What else? Okay, now I want to show you how to find research opportunities. And one thing before I show this, I want to emphasize that competition math is not research math. Research requires lots of patience. In competition math, you're expecting to be able to do something very quick. Research math, pretty much the exact opposite. Okay. Now I show. Okay. Oh, well, I'm going to be kneeling down here. So, what is this? This is AMS. So these are what I recommend. This is the website I recommend going to finding ideas for research projects. You can look into it and see what's going on here. Here you can see that they have high school and college students who visit this website all the time. I usually have a group, undergraduate group, that I pull projects from here and they play with them. It's really nice. Second thing. So here are the RUs that I was talking about. So this is basically a list of possible RUs. This is not a complete list, but it's pretty big. Okay. So the National Security Agency, NSA, has their own mathematics program. I'm not sure if they classify it as an RU, but fairly sure they have one. As you can see, Cornell has one. That's pretty cool. Some of them are combinatorics related. Some of them are number theory related, as you see here. That's pretty cool. There's a lot of different types. And you should know that RUs are fairly competitive to get into. So while GPA isn't everything, it's something to keep in mind during your first 2 years. A lot of students during the first 2 years kind of go nuts. They either go super happy with all the freedom, which is good. You should experience freedom. But at the same time, you need to keep in mind your studies. So AMS, if you just Google AMS and RU, you'll find it. Okay. Now, the NSA thing. Okay. So this is not the RU link, but I just wanted to show you one of the possible math things that the NSA does. I think this is what they say. So universities apply for the NSA grant. I think this is what this page is for. But I just wanted to show you that NSA does math stuff. In fact, NSA is the largest mathematics employer in the nation. They do a lot of number theory stuff, unsurprisingly. So, okay. Now for high school stuff. Now, I want to emphasize that you shouldn't be entirely focused on doing research during high school. You should be focused on learning the fundamentals. But if you still want to see like maybe a short program, then here's something that I found. So this thing, RSI, so you can go here and find all the different projects that you've done. As you can see, they have graduate, undergraduate, and high school stuff. Okay. And the very last thing is just an example of a math conference that a lot of undergraduates go to. This one is called MathFest, hosted by the Mathematical Association of America. Extremely fun to go to. I totally recommend going your second or first year. If you ask your math department, maybe they'll help fund you. But if you just Google MathFest and MAA, you'll find it. Here, what happens at a conference? Well, a bunch of undergrads and graduate students will present their research. They'll have either a nice, what they call a beamer, and explain the research like I'm doing now, or they'll have like a big research poster and they'll explain it there. But half the fun of going to one of these conferences is meeting other researchers and having fun. And also good food. So, any questions? Because this is what I want to share. Yeah.
Would the RU be in the summer before or after your 3rd year?
The summer of your 3rd year. So after. Any other questions? This is it. Go ask me questions. This is Q&A time. Yes.
Are there any other programs or anything?
For what?
For like high school stuff?
I'm sure there are. So you can always ask your local university math department, and they will almost surely be happy to work with you. If you just say, hey, I'm interested in learning about what research is, they'll hook you up. Any other questions? No? Okay, that's it. Thank you.